Welcome back. I have a literal and figurative Legend on my hands today. This is the 1992 Acura Legend. It's a 5-speed manual in the second generation of the Legend. Now, the first generation of the Legend was really important because that was when Honda brought this Acura luxury brand to the United States to compete mostly with the Europeans, the BMWs and the Mercedes of the world, who were starting to gain market share here in North America. Now, Acura had a lot of work to do to make an imprint on that market, and this car did certainly make its mark. They are quite strange though, because this has a 3.2 liter V6. It looks like it should be rear wheel drive based on the proportions. It is not, it's front wheel drive. And even stranger, under the hood, this engine is longitudinally mounted. Yes, when you open the hood of this, it looks like it belongs in a drift car. It looks like it should definitely be driving the rear wheel. So Honda always doing strange things. I don't know what to say, but it's got this LS kind of look if it was a V8, and it almost was a V8. They didn't bring a V8 into this platform because it would have interfered with the NSX. Yes, although obviously this is not going to perform like an NSX, if it had more power and torque, those numbers could have stomped on those sales from folks looking to get into a luxury Honda. It still baffles me that they sold the NSX under the Acura brand. I'll never quite understand that. We should have gotten a Honda NSX. But anyway, this Legend is phenomenal. Now, it's not quite an 8 Series with a frameless, no B-pillar type style, but these rear windows do go up and down, and you can power them from the back. So if we get in the back seat, you know, we're in this giant coupe, and there's not a ton of legroom. This is definitely not something that you'd want to spend a whole lot of time in, but there is plenty of headroom. So I don't feel claustrophobic, and I've got my window switch. I like that. We've got an ashtray and the nice, like, ruffled leather trim interior. But what's really exciting about this car is that you can get it in a manual transmission. And that's exactly how you should have this car, because Honda makes great gearboxes. You got a lot of standard features in your Acura, and I think that's where they made their place in the market, because the idea was that they were going to give you a nice, reliable, enjoyable luxury car that you didn't have to nickel and dime yourself to get the one you want. But there are some strange things about this for sure, and let me show you my favorite. This steering wheel has controls on it. We have buttons. We've got our horn, and we have our cruise control and our audio controls. Watch that volume knob when I turn up the radio. How bizarre! Those are the little quirks that we like. Also, it has heated mirrors, so in the winter you don't have to scrape those off. Now, the owner has told me that the ABS light is on, likely just the module. This car did come with standard ABS, and yes, back in the day, that was a big deal. Don't mess with those guys. I can see why Ludacris kept his. This one only has 71,000 miles on it. This makes do with 200 horsepower. Now, you'll notice I'm not ripping through gears. We don't want to abuse the car. Also, it's not a race car, and although it does have a beautiful Honda gearbox, it's not something that you're just slamming gears. You want to take your time. You want to be a gentleman with this car. It's a cruiser, man. Oh, this is good. You know what? Let's take it on the highway. I think this is where it belongs. It's a luxury cruiser. It's a GT car. It's meant to be the reliable and classy daily driver. Gotta love the Merritt Parkway. Tons of visibility. That's an honest 200 horsepower, I'll tell you what. This is like Porsche 200, man. Honda knows, I guess they still know how to make a car, but this is good. I miss old Honda. I miss when you could just, I mean, can you get an Accord with a manual? Probably still, maybe. I don't know. Nice, tall fifth gear, 70 miles an hour, 26, 25, 50 RPM. This is designed to just get on the highway and go. And it still baffles me, just the way this car is set up, that it's front-wheel drive, but I guess that's part of the charm. Had this been rear-wheel drive, I think this would have been like the ultimate drift car 10, 15 years later on the second, third, probably fifth-hand market, honestly. Definitely a missed opportunity for racing culture by Honda on that one. Easy to drive, man. Oh, soft. It's still a boat, but you just grab a gear. While it may look like it's the size of a Cadillac, it definitely has the feel of a Honda. And you don't look like a jerk in this car at all, because you look cultured. You look like you have some class. It certainly is luxurious in here. You would have been a gentleman, like someone who really appreciated driving, to buy this car at the time. Because again, you're buying a luxury car. Most folks don't associate a manual transmission with a luxury car. In fact, people that I knew that bought E30s when they were new in the late 80s, their family members would be like, why would you shift your own gears when you're paying this much for a car? That's not what you do. So you had to have the joy of driving. The best thing about Acura is that it's Honda. Honda has always kind of put driving first. They've always designed chassis that were invigorating, exciting to drive, and functional on a racetrack. Not necessarily because you're going to go do a track day, but the fact that it had the appropriate driving dynamics was very important to Honda, and I hope still is. I haven't driven a lot of new Hondas, but when you get into one, it's like getting into an old BMW. It's like an old friend, you know? It's funny, if I were to be driving a BMW from this era, this gearbox, this shifter would be wobbling all over the place even while it's in gear. I'd be able to play around with it. This is like rock solid. There's something Honda really knew. It's always obvious when a car was built by people who like driving. This was built by people who like driving. It's so weird when you get into like a luxury car that still inspires you to want to go and carve out some twisty roads. Squirrel. It does pull the red line. This is great. She's quick. There are so many squirrels in the road. I can't believe I've not killed a squirrel today. Had a couple close calls. Good call, countryman. Didn't kill the cyclist. This 3.2 liter is fantastic. It's got nice mid-range torque, so it's actually really easy to drive around and make passes, and you don't always feel like you need to downshift. But it also pulls really strong to redline, and the gear ratios on this 5-speed, mwah, beautiful. Honda builds cars correctly. They give you what you need. They give you what you want. They make things feel natural. You notice more when things are wrong than when things are right. So I think a lot of people probably get in cars like this and they just take it for granted that the gear ratios are so perfect and that it drives so nicely and intuitively. But, ooh, a Porsche family. But Honda has always made things that just fit. Now, granted, I don't know what the automatic version of this car feels like, and I would imagine it's less desirable. I'd imagine that the shifts are pretty slow, and I would imagine that that 4-speed auto does not have the ratios that I would particularly be looking for. But again, it's got to be luxurious. This feels so good. So where does this fit in today? Is it something that you would drive in 2020? I mean, to me, this is like exactly what I would be looking for as a reliable classic daily for cheap. I don't know what they go for. I assume they're not that crazy expensive. Maybe with low miles they are, but I would much rather have this than an Accord, not because I don't like the Accord, but because this has a little more of a statement. This has a little more of a presence, and it's unique. Had this been built as a rear-wheel drive platform, this would be big money. This would be big money. People would be fighting for these cars. But it's not, and I think that's why it needs to live on as a great, reliable, classy, unique daily driver for folks who are willing to be the stewards of something a little out of the ordinary. This is so Connecticut. It's just everyone has a Bentayga or something. Everybody in this town is pretty. What is with New Canaan? Uh-oh, running a yellow light in New Canaan, Connecticut. I think that's as illegal as it gets around here. Well, guys, I'm going to head over to Zoombox and get myself a coffee here in New Canaan before I drive back up to Boston. But thank you to T-Minus for letting me drive this Legend, the Acura Legend. I mean, how often does someone toss you the keys to a manual Legend? This is so cool. I'm really thrilled to have been given this experience. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. And a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Any contribution means the world to me. The fact that you guys believe in this channel is incredible, and your support helps keep it alive. Is that the sound of a radio antenna? I need to know. Yes! That's really all I want in my life. God, I miss my dad's Volvo. It had that.